Jenny Marlar is the Director of Survey Research at Gallup and has been the Chief Methodologist of the Gallup panel since 2013. Her work focuses on methods for recruiting and retaining probability-based panels and strategies for reaching low incidence or hard-to-reach populations. Her talk today is on combining probability and non-probability panel samples to improve inclusion of low incidence populations. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Let's see. Not able to get my slides to advance here. Bear with me for a second. Okay, there we go. So we have a probability-based panel at Gallup, which has been a very powerful research tool for us, but it does have some limitations. And one of those is that if we're trying to reach a very low incidence population, or we're trying to support very large sample sizes, we may not have enough panel members within our panel to support that research. So we've been experimenting with supplementing our panel samples with non-probability sample in an effort to try to increase sample sizes. We're still kind of in the experimental phase. I know other panels have been doing similar research, but we wanted to share a little bit of our findings from one experiment that we conducted. We had a study that had a special focus on trying to better understand the experiences of Black Americans. We knew we would need a larger sample size than what we could get from our panel alone, so felt like this was a good opportunity to do a little bit of experimenting. Just some quick background on the Gallup panel if you're not familiar with it. It is a probability-based panel with about 100,000 members. We recruit via ABS and RDD. It's a multi-mode panel, so we can reach our members using web, mail, telephone, and SMS. For the offline population, so people who don't have internet access, we do not provide device access like some other panels provide. We need to use either a mixed mode approach, or we do have quite a few studies where, because of timeline and budget, our clients or our internal teams make the decision to exclude the offline population and do a web-only study. For this particular project, again, we had a special focus on Black respondents. We did have a sample of all adults, or I should say what we would consider a representative sample of all adults, but really had that special focus on Black respondents. It was a web-only survey because of, again, that budget and timeline constraint. So we selected from our panel all members who are Black, and we were not able to do stratification, which is something that we would typically do. We would typically draw a stratified sample to try to account for differential non-response. We did have some concern that because we weren't able to do the stratification and because we were excluding the offline population, that we would have not only a smaller sample size than what we wanted for our study, but we would have some underrepresentation, especially of low socioeconomic status Black respondents, and wanted to be able to do analysis within that group. So to supplement that, we drew that non-probability sample to try to boost sample sizes. We've been doing this again with other projects, and when we're evaluating that sample, we're looking at the representativeness of the sample, both for our probability-based sample and the non-probability, the accuracy of the estimates, and the quality of the measurement. This is a short presentation, so I'm really going to focus on point 3, kind of the quality of the measurement, but we have more findings we hope to share with everyone in the future. We did this in late 2020. Our survey was primarily focused on employment experiences, so a lot of our questions were filtered by whether or not you are working. We programmed and hosted the survey, and the non-probability and our panel members saw the exact same survey, had the same survey experience. For the non-probability sample, we worked with a partner that we partner with regularly. We have vetted a number of non-probability panels in the past, and this is one where we've had good experience. We feel good about the quality of the data. We asked them to deliver us a demographically representative sample. So we had quotas, and on an unweighted basis, that sample appeared demographically representative. And really, if you would have compared that to our unweighted Gallup panel sample where we don't employ quotas, you would have looked at it and said, oh, the non-probability looks a little bit better. We ended up with about not quite 14,000 completes. 4,000 of those were from Black respondents. 1,500 of those Black respondents came from the panel, the Gallup panel, and about 2,500 from the non-probability. We did weight the results. We constructed results for the total population, and then we also had a set of weights for the employed population because so many of our questions look at the employed population. Our weighting has several steps, including post-stratification, and then we also have a final step that is kind of a calibration step where we're trying to calibrate the non-probability to the probability sample. And that's a weighting procedure that is something we're continuing to test and refine. We had 96 questions that didn't include demographics that were a part of our weighting. We looked at the results and compared the probability and the non-probability for all respondents and then also for Black respondents. The patterns in terms of the differences that we saw between the two sample sources were very similar, whether we look at all respondents or Black respondents, since our focus was really on how did we do in reaching this special population. I'm going to present the results just of Black respondents. So we looked at the questions and we tried to see what kind of a difference are we seeing between them. So for 11 of our 96 questions, we saw a less than 5% difference in the responses. For kind of at the other end of the spectrum, for 32 of our questions, which was a third of our questions that we asked, we saw a greater than 15-point difference. So I'll show you some examples of what we saw. The first here is looking at employment status. You will see here that for the non-probability sample, a much higher number reported that they were unemployed. So it's not employed, but looking for work. And that's consistent with what we've seen in our other experiences using the non-probability sample. We can almost count on that always being different. This was a question where we didn't see a difference. We were asking about feelings about household income. So are they living comfortably on present income versus finding it very difficult? There was no difference between respondents. And I should mention these are weighted results. Then starting to look at some job characteristics, we saw a big difference in the number who reported being in a leadership or managerial role, significantly more in the non-probability reported having a leadership role. Excuse me. We asked a series of questions about workplace culture and really saw some major differences here, especially in the strongly agree option. We saw that the non-probability respondents were giving consistently more positive responses than our Gallup panel members. Here's another example. At work, I feel comfortable being myself. 30% in the Gallup panel strongly agreed compared to 47% in the non-probability. We had a series of questions about discrimination. So did you feel discriminated against at work? Again, just a reminder that we're continuing here just to look at Black respondents who are employed, and this is on a weighted basis. In the Gallup panel, 20% said yes, they had experienced discrimination in the past 12 months compared to 27% in the non-probability. And then from there, if they said yes, they'd experienced discrimination, we asked them about that discrimination. The sample sizes start to get a little bit small, but we saw some really extreme differences here. One of the areas where we saw the largest difference was on people who said they were discriminated against because of their race or ethnicity. Almost everyone in the panel who had indicated discrimination said, yes, they had felt discrimination because of race, ethnicity, compared to 67%. And then there were a few that really grabbed our attention. Excuse me, you'll see here, pregnancy in the Gallup panel, 4% experienced discrimination compared to 22 in the non-probability, just kind of some non-plausible answers. So we decided to look at response quality. We took a look first at straight lining. We had 2 batteries where we could look at straight lining, an engagement battery and a workplace battery. And the non-probability respondents were much more likely to straight line than the Gallup panel. You can see here for the engagement battery, 7.6% straight lined in the non-probability sample. We did the same thing, looked at straight lining for the discrimination series. We had a similar series about harassment that asked questions like, have you experienced offensive name calling or violent threats? We saw almost no straight lining in our Gallup panel sample, but saw a significant amount of straight lining, meaning they answered yes to every single question in the non-probability sample. And then we decided to look at time of response. So our median response time in the Gallup panel was about 12 minutes compared to about 8.5 minutes in the non-probability sample. Respondents who were able to answer that survey in less than 4 minutes was about 1.5% of the Gallup panel compared to 10% of the non-probability. So I'll wrap up here with a few conclusions. So we were able to achieve our objective of increasing sample sizes. That's not hard to do when you have a non-probability sample source out there where you can reach these kind of respondents. But obviously we want to be sure that we have a representative sample and that we're getting high quality responses. For a lot of these questions where we did see differences, we don't have gold standard benchmarks to know what is the true answer. But based on what we're seeing here in terms of measurement and data quality, it does feel like the face validity of some of the responses from the non-probability sample is questionable. So we're going to be continuing to explore this. I hope others will as well. There's a lot of focus on the representativeness of non-probability sample, but we're also taking some time to pay special attention to how do we deal with those inattentive responders and deal with the measurement issues that we're seeing. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.